Hey guys, hope everyone's well. So we're just in the Alps, just on the Italian side of the Alps. I did a video last week saying prepping for the Alps, and I was getting the CF Moto 450 MT ready for it. And we spent 3 days riding down through rural France, so Avalon, and then we camped near Mont Blanc, and then came down through Val d'Isère and all those roads a few days ago. And then we've had 3 days here to do some trail riding in this area that's, I guess, made famous by the Stella Alpina event, which is no longer on, sadly, due to I think the council put too much pressure on the organisers to provide insurance and other sort of formal organisation. So unfortunately the Stella Alpina event is no longer on, but you can still ride the trail that was based around the Col Sommelier. So that's what we came down to do. I've got 22 bikes, so a big group. I've got 4 people helping me. Ben, Julian and David, who've all done a great job of just helping me out on this one. It's a lot to coordinate, it's a lot of people to move and to work the logistics for, and to keep safe and to give adventure. It's kind of trying to please everyone and tick every box. We've had weather against us. We had snow yesterday on Sommelier, but we've had some, I mean, everyone's done incredibly well. Everyone's on smaller bikes. The biggest one is a Tenere, but we've got CRF 300s, we've got a Cero 225, we've got a Himalayan 411, we've got a Himalayan 450, 310 GS, Fantic Caballero 500, we've got a KTM 390 Adventure, Husqvarna, a couple of Husqvarna 701, so mainly small bikes. And for me it was an opportunity to try the CF Moto in an environment where it needed to excel or to perform. You know, it's a high pressure you put on a bike when it's the guide's bike, because it's got to be reliable for a start. That's crucial. And then it's got to do the task at hand. It's got to do multiple types of riding. It's got to do it in the rain. It's got to do it in the mud. It's got to do it on the tarmac. It's got to do it on the dirt. And so it really puts a bike under a spotlight. I've been impressed with the CF Moto before this trip. I've enjoyed riding it, and I claimed it to be the unicorn because I found it did the trail and the road equally well, and therefore it could do everything. You know, maybe there were better bikes, better at either end, but in a bike that covered a big expanse of trail to tarmac, for me it ticked a lot of boxes, and it's sub £6,000. You know, so it was a winner before this trip, but I guess the ultimate test was performing on this trip. We've done some trail riding today, yesterday and the day before. How was that? You know what I love about the bike the most is its weight distribution and its weight management. There are some bikes that weigh 200 kilos and feel 220 kilos. There are some bikes that weigh 200 kilos and feel 180 kilos, and this is one of them. The weight seems to sit so low, it seems so well balanced, that when you're in the tight technical stuff, you're just not wanting to drop in on you. You're not having to always think about counter steering, counterbalancing, having a leg ready to catch the bike. And if you do make a mistake, you can catch the bike because it's just wanting to stand upright almost on its own. I love the way they've designed it. I don't know if it's the sump is so low on the bike. You know, you could say it's a low sump. I don't think it's exposed because I've got a heavy duty bash plate on. Maybe the fuel tank also sits low on it. But what it means is you've got a really nice centre of gravity, a sense of mass about the bike. Lifting it off the stand is light and easy, and I think that gives you confidence for the trails. And I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the light clutch, the smooth engine. It really wants to dig, and it wants to excite you and bring a smile to your face. It's an engaging bike to ride. We've been doing some tight, twisty stuff today, being chased by James on the road, and the more you ride it, you can start to get the back stepping out, but it's smooth and it's controllable. And I think what I found is it's got power just enough to use almost all of it, or get the most potential out of it without it overwhelming you and the bike. You know, some of the guys on the 701 and the 890s, as soon as it gets technical, they've got to be really gentle on that throttle, or they've got to rely on traction control. I think with 40 brake horsepower and a really smooth linear delivery, you can really feed it and feel it. It's a cable operated throttle as well, which I think really helps the connectivity between you and the engine and the throttle. It just almost works in perfect symmetry and harmony, and you can drive the bike in complete control of it and feel of it. And that and the weight distribution, for me, are the two main core strengths of the bike. And for this end of the market at this price point, I think it's unrivaled. Because it will do the trail work with excitement and confidence and capability, but it would also it's also done the road work well. It's low geared, which I think could be a fault if you're doing lots of motorway stuff. You know, it'll pull sort of 14 miles an hour in fourth. It'll pull 20 miles an hour in sixth. It's a really low geared bike, which has been a criticism, but if you want to change it, all you've got to do is put a new front sprocket on it. For the mountains, for the trails, I've actually found that low gearing really nice, because I've been on the really tight stuff even, I've been able to leave it in second and just ride it around on the throttle, maybe a bit of clutch slip, nice and light clutch. But I've not had to come back down to first, which for me unsettles the bike sometimes. And you know, it just adds more input to the bike, which is not necessarily needed if the gearing's right for it. So actually I like the stock gearing for riding in this sort of terrain. On the open road, yes, you're soon into high revs and it can get a bit buzzy at 70, 75, but it will do it. And with a 15-tooth front sprocket, it would do it even better. I think you've got big bike ergonomics on the bike, which give you good weather protection and also just a big sense of scale. You know, you don't feel like you sat on a trail bike or a 450. You feel like you've sat on a full-size bike with a decent screen, decent leg protection from the plastic. And I think that's a good sensation. You know, it's good for when you're doing distances to feel like you're sat on something big rather than something small. I think the only caveat to that is because you're sat on a big bike with a big enclosure of fairing, you sometimes think you've got big bike power. And there's been a few times when I've gone to wind out to either overtake or pull away or accelerate hard, and you're suddenly reminded you're on a 450 with 40 brake horsepower and it weighs 200 kilos. It's not got any explosiveness. You kind of rev it through waiting for it to kick and go, and then you hit the rev limiter and you think, oh, it's not there. There is not that grunt there that you, for somebody who's coming off a Tenere or KTM or any of the bigger bikes, I think they're going to miss that grunt. And I would say that's the only slightly misgiving I would have before recommending this bike to people who are finding the Tenere too big. They might find the Tenere too big, but they might find this too slow. And there'll be some who jump in, there'll be some go that way and some go that way. But there are points when you wish it had got a little bit more power, even if it was 47 horsepower. I've got the Vosges 525 DSX on test at the minute back at home, and that 47 brake horsepower hits hard. It goes pretty quick actually, and if this could just have that extra 7 brake horsepower, it'd be beyond perfect. You know, at the minute it is perfect, but it would, an extra 7 brake horsepower I think would solve that slight nagging that you've not got the power to match the size of the bike. Suspension's an interesting one. It's firm. John at Rally Raids had the suspension apart and looked at it, and it looks to be engineered firm rather than set firm. So there are times on the tracks, especially when you're going slow, that it's very firm and you feel every bump and it jitters a lot. It's not got no softness to it. It's not got no absorbency, which is in some ways a bad thing depending on your pace. If you're a slower rider taking it steady and learning, you're going to find it jarring. You're probably going to find it unsettles you a little bit. However, when you start to push on and push the bike and start hitting stuff harder, the suspension really starts to work and control the bike beautifully. You can take hits at the front end, you can come over those dips and land straight into the next one, and it doesn't deflect. It's perfectly stable and communicative with you as a rider and the terrain. It just does its job firmly but well. So I think depending on what type of rider you are, you're going to find it too firm or just right. I probably would like a little bit more softness for when I'm just gentle riding, but that's my preference. There is a lot of adjustment, but I don't think there's enough adjustment to give you that softness. I think you're probably going to have to look at the aftermarket. In terms of comfort, I've had no problems at all. It's been a comfortable bike. In terms of tank range, I've been getting over 200 miles, 220 miles. It's probably doing about 70, 75 miles per gallon, which is not high for a 450, but I can live with that for the fact I enjoy riding the bike. As I say, the core strength of the bike is that weight management, how they've designed the bike, how they've engineered it to shed its weight rather than to gain its weight. I think is the most impressive thing. And I think, you know, we look at it's a Chinese bike. Okay, this is third generation Chinese bike. That's kind of how I've rationalised it in my mind. Like the first generation was the cheap bikes, which weren't very good, copies of 125s, etc. You know, they gave the Chinese companies a bad reputation. Second generation bikes like the Vosges DSX 525 that are copies of Japanese bikes which do it as well, and they've managed to copy nicely what the Japanese are up to. Gen 3, whoa, somebody's having a go. Go for it. Gen 3 is this bike where the Chinese have have leapfrogged ahead of what the Japanese are offering for the fact that they've listened to what the consumer wants. It's almost the most, for a communist country, they've done the most capitalist thing. They've listened to the consumer and they've built the bike that the consumer wants rather than building a bike and trying to force the consumer to have it. You know, just simple things like the traction control and ABS button is just joyful because you can be riding along, you hit a trail, you forget that you've still got ABS and traction control on. You can reach with your thumb, hold it down for 2 seconds, while the throttle's open and it will disengage. So you don't have to stop, you don't have to faff, and then to turn it back on when you tarmac, you just press it once and it comes back on. It's the most simple but startlingly useful piece of technology or a single button that anybody's put on a bike in recent years. Why the other manufacturers mean you have to stop, put it into neutral, then do all the settings. You know, this just is a breath of fresh air. So I think they've really listened to the customer. And they built a great bike. It really is a great bike. And I've took KTM 390s on tours, I've took Triumph 400s on tours, Himalayan 452s on tours, 411s on tours, CRS. As a package, this blends all of those great elements. The CRS and the Vogue are better on the trails and lighter. The 390 is more exciting in the corners. And the Himalayan 450s could be a better chugger bike maybe. But this combines the strengths of all those. It's a great bike. It really is a class-leading bike that hopefully is going to push and challenge the other manufacturers. Because I think if you could compare it to anything, you could say it's like it's a Yamaha T3 built by China. So come on, Yamaha, build a Yamaha T3. I would say should be the next question. Like, where is the T3? Where's the Kawasaki? Where's the Versys 400? You know, this is asking questions of an industry that's forgotten how to provide the bike that the customer is asking for. This is a response to customer demand. And there's a reason that's why it's selling so many. I've seen 4 out here already, which to say it's only launched this year, I think is quite a surprise. I didn't expect to see so many. So it's proving popular. And the price is going to be, I gather, is the same for next year. So you just think, what? Great bike, great price. Ticks so many boxes. But in fairness, you know, everybody here is on a different bike. CRS, Vogue, Himalayans. Everyone's loved their bikes, everyone's gelled with their bikes and found great strength in their bike, and their bike has enabled them to go on an amazing, hopefully, adventure where they've challenged themselves and pushed themselves. And that's the measure of a good bike, isn't it? You know, so whether you prefer a CF Moto or a Fantic or a CRF, doesn't matter. As long as that bike will take you to places you didn't think you would be able to go, that's it. Big bike versus small, it's no longer a debate for me. It really is no longer a debate. You know, if you're wanting to come here to explore, to go beyond your comfort zone, you need a smaller bike. We've got people here on bigger bikes. Even Julian, who's a very strong rider, on the sommelier, on the tight corns, on an 890, starts to struggle. He said it's at the top of his limit, of his ability. Put him on a small bike and he would whiz up that. He wouldn't be anywhere near close to his limit. And to be honest, these bikes, all of them, 300cc or whatever, or the 225 Sero, they're all going to get back to Britain, no problem, because we're going to take a route that suits the bike. So instead of changing the bike to suit the trip, change the trip to suit the bike, because the bike will get you places. So that's it. We're going to pack up, we're going to go home in the morning. I think everyone has done incredibly well. You know, way out their comfort zone, some of these guys, but their ability to persevere, to learn skill, to encounter and endeavour is gone beyond, I think, what I expected of them. Like the people who got to the top or near to the top on the sommelier yesterday in snow was quite incredible. You know, my heart was in my mouth and I kind of wish we weren't there, but people came for an adventure and it's difficult to disappoint, even though deep down you think, this is reckless, this is stupid. What do we do if things go wrong? And that is adventure, isn't it? Putting yourself in a position which actually could get you into trouble, but thankfully didn't. So that's it, CF Moto 450 MT. Is it a brilliant bike? Yes, it's a brilliant bike. Could it be made better with a slightly softer tuner suspension and a slight increase in power, so you have got that grunt? I think so, but that's nitpicking on what is otherwise a spectacular bike. And just to say, this is my bike. I bought this bike. I buy all my bikes. Therefore, I have no favouritism to either brand, and I can find favour in all bikes. But at the minute, this one, by far, is my favourite bike. So whether you've got one on order or you're thinking about one, it's kind of a no-brainer, guys. It really is. So, yeah, well done. Well done, CF Moto. You know, thank you for listening. Thank you for building a bike that we've been wanting for fucking years. And Honda and everyone else has been in la la land. So well done, China. The communist regime, abiding by the principles of marketing and capitalism. Who would have thought it, eh? Right, gonna get me dinner. Cheers.